Okay, today we're running on vibes and we're just gonna see how that goes. Hey friends, it's your good friend Tim Campbell Smith, and today I'm gonna give you ideas of different additional trainings you may want to do as a social worker. Now please note, in this video, I'm not gonna tell you like where to go do these trainings or how to do them, because social work is legislated by each province and then for the country, and then if you're in a different country it's totally different. So I'm going to give you ideas of like different types of trainings and some suggested ones that may increase or help your practice. One commonality as a baby social work student, but also someone who creates content about social work and follows other social workers, I'm constantly hearing this feedback that in your bachelor's and even your master's, there's not enough training, and there's not enough training in certain areas. So I want to give you ideas for different types of trainings, hopefully just to open up your blind spots and realize like, oh, maybe I could use additional training and support there. Before we go too far, make sure you like and subscribe for all things social work, mental health, higher ed, business, life. I will say I do find it ironic that early in my social work education journey, we are already having instructors and profs tell us to think about additional trainings and to start looking into additional trainings. And I know this is a common question that social workers ask in industry, so I did some digging. Let's get into it. I think the additional trainings you can do break down into different categories, so be it like clinical or business or practice areas. But let's start with like clinical skills, because this is a very common one, understandably so, because private practice is such an appealing part of social work, especially if you have your master's of social work. So I'm going to consult my list because I want to make sure that I get this right. The most popular clinical skills that I found people recommending to go do trainings on were really start with any modality. So IFS or internal family systems, CBT or cognitive behavioral therapy, DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, EMDR, trauma-informed approaches to counseling, or clinical hypnosis. I was surprised by the clinical hypnosis, but if you can get certified and integrate it and it's evidence-based, go for it. Those are the most popular clinical focuses. I will say, I thought it was also interesting to introduce like other forms of, or other modalities, so learning about like play therapy or horticultural therapy or equine assisted therapy might be interesting as well. Next, a popular area for continued development were topics in social work. So one being supervision, learning how to effectively and ethically supervise others. Next was running a business. And I know like the Ontario College of Social Workers has a bunch of practice notes on this, but there are even brief like courses and workshops you can take on running your own private practice. Ethics. I don't think there's any shortage of courses on ethics in social work. And management and leadership within social work practice areas, but also in business and in general. I would say the next area of professional development are styles of and practice influences. So learning about like anti-racist methods and practices and how to integrate anti-racist practices into counseling, into different settings, like in hospital social work, like when working with people who are unhoused or justice involved. With that is also any decolonized or indigenous-centered, indigenous-focused practice and how to integrate that practice. There's lots of workshops and courses, and it's a great area of professional development. Strengths-based approach. It's ironic, I'm even seeing it now in my early days of social work education, that social work constantly tries to take a strengths-based approach, or like looking for people's strengths and their opportunities, but we still talk about most social work interventions from a deficit perspective. So learning how to integrate strengths-based approaches to everything, I think is always a good opportunity. Or trauma-informed approaches. So what is trauma? How does it actually show up? How to work with folks who have experienced trauma and different types of trauma throughout life. Next, you can do professional development and courses and workshops based on populations you want to work with. So there are lots of courses and workshops on, for example, working with Indigenous clients, working with I did in my research find courses that are like, here's how to work with racialized populations. That is a very broad and a very umbrella term. So you could also do specific courses on like working with Black folks, working with Asian folks. Not just that though, you could also do it on working with neurodivergent folks or folks with autism spectrum disorder or addictions or children or families. Another area of professional development would be any specific certifications. So think like mental health first aid, assist, addictions. In Ontario and Canada, you can get certifications in those areas. With your certifications though, do think about like what level of competency you want. I found with many certifications, like you could just read a book, but then there was also a graduated system of like entry level, intermediate, maybe something a little more advanced, and then like train the trainer level trainings. The other thing you might want to do professional development on, and I found this a really cool rabbit hole to go down, was very unique and niche skill sets and skills for social workers. So I discovered the world of financial social work. This is where social workers are taught about finance and then how to work with and how to use social work practice combined with, we don't want to call it financial advising or financial planning. Those are protected titles in Ontario, but how to combine like the worlds of finance, which require social workers to know finance and have financial literacy with principles of social work. Another area I found was like job readiness and job coaching. So taking skills in social work, applying theories and knowledge from applying for jobs, getting jobs, everything to do with careers, and blending those two together. So you might want to do professional development in niche and specific areas. A few other notes though on your professional development. One, here's what I think you should look for and what anyone should look for in trainings. There should be a mix of instruction, practice, and opportunities for feedback based on practice. Now, I got this actually from the Ontario College of Social Workers practice notes. They have a practice note, and I could track it down if anybody wanted. They have a practice note on what does it mean to be competent, particularly in therapy and delivering a therapeutic modality. And I loved that their practice note said, we think someone is approaching and would be competent if they had instruction on it, the opportunity to practice, and assessment and evaluation where feedback was provided on the skill. So where possible, when possible, try to take a course or a workshop that actually involves instruction and practice and getting feedback. Where can you find these professional development opportunities in these workshops? I found that there were 3 core areas. The first was universities. I go to Wilfrid Laurier, and I think the impression I get is that Laurier kind of dominates in the area of professional development for social workers. They are constantly offering so many different workshops and courses. And when I say course, I mean like it's usually a weekend. It's a couple days or the equivalent of like 15 hours. But universities is where you'll find a lot of them look into their continuing education or professional development for social workers. Next, you may look into, and this is where as a baby social worker I don't have as much knowledge or wisdom, is look for leaders in a particular area of social work. So like the one I know is Gottman. So if you want to work on clinical skills, particularly for couples and families, like you'd go to the Gottman Institute because they are leaders in relationships, families, and counseling. And finally, you may find them through different associations. So the Canadian Association of Social Workers will put on different events, but also can connect you to other events. But you can also look at associations with specialized modalities. So for example, the Horticultural Therapy Association will put on trainings on horticultural therapy. So you can look to those associations. And that is your brief crash course into professional development opportunities for social workers. So it could be skills-based, it could be population-based, it could be based on like an area of social work, so like supervision or business, ethics, record keeping, termination practices. Either way though, look to universities, look to different associations or leaders, and make sure if possible, and this doesn't apply to all of them, so it'd be harder to do this like for business practices, but if possible, where possible, do try to find a course or an opportunity that combines instruction and practice and feedback. Comment and let me know any of your favorite places or spaces or opportunities for professional development in the social work space. And then we can kind of build a wisdom garden together. Otherwise, make sure you like and subscribe for all things business, higher ed, mental health, and life. Otherwise, we'll chat soon. Bye for now.